This meeting is being recorded.
Good morning, everybody. Today is Sunday, December the 11th. You are listening or watching another edition of Forward Maryland. We are both extremely well lit today because, let's face it, the weather outside, while not exactly frightful, sucks. My name is Bill Woodcock.
And I'm Steve Hunt. And the only thing I can say about today's weather is it's pretty damn good football weather. So, and what better weather for Ravens Steelers than crap weather? It kind of is old school. I love it.
And they're having crap weather in Pittsburgh too. You know, there was a little bit of me, Steve, that thought about maybe not having today's podcast and instead taking a drive out to the Berg. But, you know, because I know it's not freezing. I know I wouldn't be hit with solid frozen over beers. You know, like I know friends of mine who were wearing purple and black have for that game. However, I believe batteries also get thrown from time to time. And, you know, I have chosen not to take a battery to the head today, Steve. How about you?
Yeah, it's a smart move. I will tell you, I can say from experience, Iron City beer, it might not go down well, but it freezes very well for throwing at people and turning into projectiles.
I will withhold all comment on Iron City beer. And while I said I don't want to take a battery to the head, possibly with this next statement I make, I will take the figurative battery to the head. Apparently, something I said on this very podcast was excerpted and used as part of this ongoing discussion involving the Columbia Association Board of Directors, the Columbia Association President, and various other entities. And it's really gotten a little bit nasty and quite vile, the level of vitriol that this goes to. And this is, by the way, everybody, this is a Bill editorial. This is not a topic we're going to discuss on today's podcast. But I do want to take a couple minutes to discuss this because some of these wonder children who apparently, you know, they've been involved in local politics for 15 minutes. They have a phone, they can look at YouTube, and then all of a sudden they know me. And they have no idea who I've been for the last 35 years. You know, they take a comment that I say and they use words like racist. They use words like privileged. They use words like, well, I can't help this word, white. You know, can't do anything about that. Guilty as charged. But that doesn't make me sensitive or caring or compassionate. And just because I disagree with you about a certain thing, that doesn't demean my opinion. So I would say to all those would-be liberal cancelers out there, I got two words for you. And you know what those words are. But I'm going to put my ego at the door, and I'm going to speak to an issue that came up in the excerpted part of the podcast when I spoke. Steve and I spoke a couple podcasts ago about the new business in downtown Columbia called The Third. And it was Howard Hughes Corporation in 2020 and 2021 when they talked about opening The Third, that they talked about it being a technological incubator. If you want to go back, there's an article in the Baltimore Sun that talked all about it, and that it would be a place for minority people of color, especially women of color, to meet, to be entrepreneurial, to develop businesses, to incubate businesses. And then it was mentioned that there would be a little bit of retail that could be involved. And I made comments the other day on the podcast or a few weeks ago that talked about, you know, The Third is largely a cafe and a sandwich setup. That's not the fault of anybody who runs The Third. I don't know Ms. Bacon, who runs The Third. I believe from what I've seen of her in the media and from what I understand of her public statements, she's a very well-meaning, capable businesswoman. And I hope they have all the success. God knows they need success in that location. It's the most challenged retail location in all of downtown Columbia. Where I had aimed my venom, and perhaps not clearly enough, but let me be clear now, is on the developer of Columbia's downtown, the preeminent Howard Hughes Corporation, that promised and sold the development on being something other than it was. And there's nothing wrong with what it is. But as they often do, Howard Hughes over sells. And what's disturbing to me is that there are a good number of liberal activists in Columbia who follow what Howard Hughes Corporation says, hook, line, and sinker. They follow Howard Hughes as if they were the Rouse Corporation. They follow the leader of Howard Hughes, the ever indomitable GF, and I will not say his name, but you can figure out who he is, as if he is James Rouse 2.0. And I met James Rouse. I won't say James Rouse was a friend of mine.
Oh no, here it comes.
I with James Rouse a few times, and GF is no James Rouse. Let's get that straight. And for all of my detractors out there who want to post and call me racist, I know none of y'all ever met James Rouse. So just hush it up, because you don't know. So if you think that Howard Hughes Corporation can extol the best of what Columbia can be, that's your problem, not mine. I have faith in the people of Columbia. I have faith in Columbia's organizations. I have faith in the citizens to determine what's best for our fair community. That's how I have felt. That's how I've operated in this community for the over, gee whiz now, 22 years that I've lived in Columbia. And that's the way it's going to continue as long as I live here. Anyway, no offense towards the great people at the Third, Ms. Bacon, any of the fine folks who work there. I wish them all the success in the world. My heart goes with them. However, Howard Hughes Corporation, you stink. Not happy with you, not a fan, never will be. And the same goes for the rest of this little cabal of pro-development Columbia types who want to tell the people of this town what's good for it. It doesn't work that way here. Never has, never will. Steve, I'm done with this. Can we now get on to talking about other fun things?
Absolutely, and you know, you can never go wrong with the Lloyd Benson reference. And since I know you want to put this out here in honor of the former senator, I was happy to yield the floor, sir.
My pleasure. Now, Steve, let's my plan to have my plan to stand up all during the podcast has already been shot to hell because of my stupid knee. But Steve, you and I apparently went to a show a couple weeks ago, about 10 days ago, which we never even knew we were at until after the fact. We went to the band Almost Queen, Steve. Tell the good people, because I just ran off at the mouth. Tell the good people about who Almost Queen is, what they are, what you do, what you were doing there, and just explain it to the people.
Well, I got to tell you, Bill, you want to talk about small worlds. Obviously this is something neither one of us knew we had an interest in. I did not have an interest originally, but I certainly was happy to go. Almost Queen is a tribute band, and as you might guess by the name Almost Queen, they are a tribute band for Queen. And I say true tribute band as opposed to cover band because the lead singer basically immerses himself and totally takes on the persona of one Frederick Mercury, totally Freddie, mannerisms, voice, the whole 9 yards. The other members of the band, there's one guy who does take on the persona of Brian May, and they jokingly refer to him as Brian Maybe, which I thought was very funny. But it effectively was a Queen concert. Obviously Queen has toured over the years since Mercury's death with was it Adam Archuleta, I believe is the guy they
Adam Lambert. Adam Archuleta was a safety for the St. Louis Rams.
Okay, I knew it was Adam something. Thank you, sir. But I knew it was some Adam. But shows you how much I paid attention, right? But these guys, they do a great show. I never saw Queen in concert. I felt like I had seen Queen in concert. I've never seen a true tribute band. I have seen cover bands. And oh, by the way, the opening act was a classic rock cover band called Experience. They're from Essex, Maryland, local boys. They, I thought, did a great job. You can't go wrong opening with Rush and closing with Jimmy, and some good stuff in between. So I got to give them a lot of props. And if you're out and about the Baltimore area and you see that Experience is playing and you love classic rock, it's a good time. They do a really good job. And I thought they were a good opening act for Almost Queen. But yeah, great time. I had also never been to that venue, Power Plant Live. It's a great venue to see a show like this. Just a good small concert venue. The facility is awesome. I mean, multiple floors, restrooms on every floor, bar on every floor. Not really a bad seat in the house, whether you're sitting or standing. So I really enjoyed the venue. Well done, and I enjoyed Almost Queen. But Bill, and I actually, just quick story, I went with neighbors. Neighbors across the street had tickets. They asked my wife and I, hey, do you guys want to go? We both like Queen. With kids, it's a rare night out. And we were like, what the heck? But so glad I made that decision. They were awesome. Bill, what were your impressions coming out of that show?
So I really had a good time. I almost went to go see Almost Queen back in April, when my best female friend, note, I am not saying my girlfriend, my best female friend, invited me to go. And unfortunately, I couldn't because of a family commitment. So she did go, and she had spoken very highly of them. And then chasing me for the following week about how I missed an awesome show. So I have taken some measures recently to become more abreast of the live music scene in the Baltimore, D.C. area, in part because of my role with the Inner Arbor Trust as a board member. Oh my God, it means he likes Nina Basu. Yes, I do. There's also that. These people. But also because I enjoy live music. And I have several friends, including my new girlfriend, who does. So she and I went to go see Almost Queen. It was amazing. I agree with you, Steve. I mean, a couple weeks ago, we had gone to Leesburg to a music venue to see a Metallica cover band. And there is definitely a difference between a cover band and a tribute band. These guys exactly acted like all four of them. I mean, Brian Maybe he did act like Brian May. The guy who was Freddie acted like Freddie, and they were proud to pay homage to those guys. I like the opening act. I'm not sure I'm as I mean, they're talented. I mean, they're young, these are young kids. Yeah. And I give a lot of props to, 18 and 19-year-olds who were standing up there playing in front of about 800 people. That was cool. But no, I'm hoping, God willing and health holding up, that I can take in some other bands in the near future. I've kind of become a little bit of a local music aficionado, thanks again to these two wonderful women in my life. And in fact, we're going to go see, my best female friend and I are going to go see a Genesis cover band this coming Friday. And down at State Theater in Falls Church. And then I have my eyes on a Rush cover band in the middle of January. Also on the lookout for a Led Zeppelin cover band. And Steve, at the end of January, the new girlfriend and I are going to go see a Bee Gees cover band out in Hagerstown. All right, so Steve, you and I, it seems like we need to talk.
Yeah, you'll have to talk to me about the Bee Gees cover band, because I would say my wife and I would be all in for that, because that would be amazing.
Well, it's January 28th out in Hagerstown at the Maryland Theater. We should all go.
All right, yeah, let's stay in touch on that. And you'll have to tell us if the Genesis cover band gets into anything from the Gabriel years, or if it's all like, late 70s and on.
Supposedly it does.
Okay.
And my BFF, I guess BFF works in this terms too. has never heard of a Genesis cover band before, nor have I.
Yeah.
So it should be a little bit of an experience for everyone involved. So that. So now, I mean, look at Steve, look at what people are getting. Look at the value add they're getting in this fine podcast production. They're getting they had a whole show on pro wrestling. They were now getting insight on the live music scene. And by the way, Steve, I mean, don't you go to a Ram's Head Live sort of situation, and don't you go, why doesn't Howard County have something like that?
Oh my God, yes. They so need something like that. I mean, Merriweather's a great venue for summer concerts and for obviously larger shows, but something like a Ram's Head, I mean, it's just one of those things where Howard County is located. It'll be such a great place, and you could attract geographically from so many different areas around here.
Right. And there was the Soundry for a couple of years, but that was nice to go to that, but it seemed a little small.
Mm-hmm.
But something more like the Ram's Head size, like 800, 900 people. I mean, that would seem to be more up the alley of what we're looking for.
Yeah, you had the place down and you had Savage that had over at Savage Mill that had something. I think years ago. I can't remember. I thought they did. Maybe I'm mistaken. I thought they had something years ago, but certainly something in Howard County would be nice.
Well, let's stay in Howard County for the next part of our podcast, and let's talk about this crazy ass bill that State Senator Clarence Lamb and Delegate Courtney Watson have pre-filed with the state. Pardon me. Wow. I feel so strongly about it. The gas is kicking up. This is really a great podcast today. But the bill they have created, which I don't know who asked for it. I don't know who wants it, but they wrote it. That would change the method in which Howard County school board members are selected from the current 5 by council district, 2 at-large county elected model to 5 by council district, 2 who are appointed by whoever the county executive is at the time model. This is going before, I believe, the Howard County delegation this week for testimony, and who knows what the bill, if the bill will even still be on the docket when it's heard. But Steve, our friend and founding co-host of this great venture, Jason Booms, has written a great blog post on his Spartan Considerations blog, roundly and soundly poo-pooing this notion. I am inclined to poo-poo this notion as well. Where are you? Do you also poo-poo too?
You're being far too kind when you use that description. I absolutely loathe this thing, and I believe it needs to die, not a slow, painful death, but a quick one so that we can forget it ever happened. And Bill, actually, I got to throw this out here for you. Your description, the piece of legislation is even worse than how you described it. So just so people in the county or anybody else interested knows how this whole thing got to be. It used to be the Board of Ed, Howard County Board of Education was elected 7 members, all countywide. That created a huge problem in terms of diversity, geographically and otherwise. Literally at one point, I think in either 2016 or 17, our 7 board members lived in 3 zip codes, not 3 council districts, not 3, cities, literally 3 zip codes. So Delegate Vanessa Atterbury, and I would love to hear what the delegate has to say about the fact that her colleagues are trying to undo what she just did, proposed legislation. I was a very early and vocal backer of it, which changed our Board of Ed from 7 at large to 5 by council district, as you said, Bill, and 2 at large, with the 5 council districts being elected during presidential election years, which means the council district candidates are not running in the same year that the county council candidates are running. So that separation was good. And then the 2 at large are running in gubernatorial years. And we just had an election of those 2 at large members. We have two members who were elected. What Delegate Watson and Senator Lamb are proposing is changing the board mix of 7 to keeping the 2 at large, having 3 by state legislative districts. So instead of your 5 council districts, it would be the 3 state legislative districts. No matter that 2 of the 3 state legislative districts are only partially in Howard County, like the new District 9, which in part is in Montgomery County. And then that the other 2 of the 7 would be by appointment by the county executive based on a list proposed by the state delegation. Now, there's so much wrong with this bill. I don't even want to take up the entire podcast, but let's just say this bill is horrible. First of all, the whole appointed board model, which was such an abject failure in Prince George's County that they just scrapped it. I believe out of Baltimore City or Baltimore County flirted with it for a while. It just doesn't work, and it just stinks and reeks and has a total, I don't know what, of political cronyism. And then the state legislative districts, I think that's a solution in search of a problem. I think Delegate Atterbury had it right. I think the fact that this bill is being proposed, we literally have just went through the first 2 election cycles under the new model. So can somebody tell me what is so wrong with this current model that it needed to be scrapped? Delegate Atterbury made an amazing case and laid out why we needed to change from the 7 at-large to the 2 at-large 5 council district. I've not heard that case from Delegate Watson or Senator Lamb. All I've heard is, well, we're implementing the blueprint and we need to have more skin in the game. That to me smells like a power play, not a solution for the people. So it's a horrible bill. It needs to go. There's going to be testimony on, I believe, Tuesday or Wednesday. I forget what day this week. They're having a public hearing. I think it's Wednesday the 14th. And they're only having it on Wednesday the 14th. So I wish them well, because that's going to be a long night, because I know there are going to be a lot of people lined up to try to voice their opinion about how bad this bill is. And Bill, I'll stop there. You're right. Jason Booms laid it out better than I could have in these couple of minutes, but it just needs to go.
Steve, let me pose to you, though, the question I asked out into the air. Who asked for this legislation? I can't think of anybody who did.
I've only seen 2 people who have been vocal supporters, and those are the 2 authors. And by the way, they conveniently put that out after the elections. So, right. and as you know, Bill, you've worked with politicians and state government. I mean, you know how this stuff works. You don't just magically write a piece of legislation in a couple of minutes or a couple of days. This was out there. This was in the minds of some people for a while. So my conspiracy theorist says either A, they didn't want to make it a general election issue. Not that I don't think Senator Lamb really had any opposition, but Delegate Watson certainly did. So they didn't want to make it an election issue. Or 2, they were waiting to see how the Board of Ed elections turned out before deciding whether or not to scrap it. And this is our 2 people didn't win, so we just need to do something because our people aren't winning, whether it's District 1 2 years ago or the at-large this time. And whatever the reasoning, I've not heard a reasoning that makes any sense to me. Again, a solution in search of a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken before on the podcast about how this makes the politicalization of the I'm just going to say politicalization of this board worse. And I don't think I need to restate that. Frankly, I just think this bill needs to be pulled. There is no problem that this is solving. And anything that people might say is just crocodile tears. Because let's not talk about how, this will make Board of Education elections less partisan. No, it won't. If anything, it makes them more partisan, and it puts a lot of extra juice into the county executive race. We don't need it. We shouldn't have it. You spoke very aptly as to how appointed boards of education don't work in this state. I don't think there's anything more I could say about it. It's a bad idea. It stinks. Get it out. let's go to the next topic and let's talk about something better. And that would be the big, and yes, 3% in a statewide race in Georgia for a Democrat is a landslide, big election of the Reverend Senator Raphael Warnock to a full 6-year term in Georgia, hopefully heralding the appropriately short political career of former New Jersey General star running back Herschel Walker. Steve, for once in a while, the good guy does win.
Yeah, and let me just mention two things, because I actually stayed up that night because I just had to make sure to see this thing all the way through for Senator Warnock. Credit to two people. One for one for Herschel Walker, who actually made a concession speech that was a concession speech. It was as good as you'll hear. It probably was the best speech that he made the entire campaign. But I got to give him props for at least saying, hey, I lost. You certainly didn't hear that out of Arizona from one Carrie Lake, who's still looking to, I don't know, sue the state or whatever the hell it is she's doing. So I give him props for that. And then two, the speech by Senator Warnock, who quite frankly found his way back to Ebenezer Baptist Church and went Reverend Warnock. That was as moving a speech as I've heard in a long time. I mean, it was a beautiful thing. If you have a chance to find it on social media somewhere, check it out. It was amazing. But you're absolutely right. And I think that this election cycle, and certainly the Georgia election, shows that when faced with a stark contrast, when faced with really staring over the edge of the abyss, as they say, the American people responded. That I feel optimistic coming out of this election cycle, because while there are a lot of people who, I don't know what the heck they were thinking, how Herschel Walker got even within 3 points of Raphael Warnock. I mean, that's just insane. But enough people in that political middle, those independents, maybe folks on either side, Dem or Republican, they saw things for what they were. They saw the risk for what it is, and they saw quality for what it is, and who really was not just the person that agreed with you all the time, but the right person for the job. So do I feel great about America after this election, politically speaking? I don't know if it's great in terms of my feeling, but I feel optimistic between that result, Arizona, Pennsylvania, even here in Maryland, that the voters can see it, and it's a good thing. And I'm glad that we will have a Senator Warnock. I'm glad that there will be a 51st, at least on the Dem side. Vice President Harris can not look at her phone looking for the next time she has to rush over to the Hill to break a 50-50 tie. It was a good thing, Bill. What are your thoughts on the peach, the great peach state of Georgia?
Well, first off, it might not quite be 51-49, as we're going to talk about in our last topic. Right. But no, I mean, I feel extremely positive about this. I mean, clearly, I think what is most impressive is all of the praise that's coming to the Warnock campaign. Remember, this was not a person who had run for any public office before getting elected to the United States Senate. So his political career is now all of about 3.5 years long, including the length of his Senate campaign. Yeah. So I think this doesn't just establish Warnock as a formidable electoral foe, but it also establishes him as, somebody to watch when we're talking about national politics going forward. If not for 2024, and it looks like the tea leaves are reading much more towards a Biden run for re-election than they have been, then certainly for 2028, which would happen to also be when Warnock's Senate seat would come up again. So, I think that what we now have is from being a rookie senator, although he still is very much a rookie, to being somebody to watch. And for those who would, again, poo-poo that, since there seems to be a lot of poo-poo going on in this podcast, there was a senator from Illinois who was elected what was he elected in, Steve? 2004?
Yep.
And he did pretty well for himself 4 years later. So,
Yeah.
be careful, because he might, Raphael Warnock may be somebody on that path. The
And
thing I'd
Bill,
like to bring up,
hey,
go
Bill, can I
ahead.
just throw this out here real quick, just to emphasize a point about Raphael Warnock. You talked about the time he's been around. He's won 4 elections. 4. Think about that. He's had to put himself out there, his name on the ballot 4 times in what, 2 years? And he's 4-0. I mean, it is amazing when you think about the fact that he's had to stand in constantly pretty much since the day he announced as a candidate, and he just keeps on rolling. I mean, it's unbelievable. I just had to.
Well, and I would say that 3 out of those 4 are hard fought. I mean, right? I mean, the first primary and the 2 generals.
Yeah.
The current the primary this year wasn't so bad. But the other point I want to make is something I read about in this morning's New York Times, because I do, even though I lame out and run late to prepare for this stuff, I do prepare. And there was an article in the New York Times about the future of Stacey Abrams's Get Out the Vote campaign, and does it succeed Stacey Abrams in Georgia? And my take is that it does. And, there's somebody who was quoted in that article as saying, if you look and you see in DC that Raphael Warnock, John Ossoff, and Joe Biden are elected into the positions that they are, that's going to stand testament to Stacey Abrams' efforts. And I think maybe that gives a little bit of insight also as to how she was unsuccessful in running for governor in Georgia. Not necessarily her fault, but my belief is that she became a lightning rod. As often people who are on the front edges of revolutionary ideas and new ways of doing things are. And being personified as the lightning rod, success for her, from an electoral standpoint, was harder for her to gain than for the people who came in behind her. So, let this victory not cause any would-be pundits out there to say Warnock was better than Abrams per se. That's not necessarily the case. It's a false equivalency if you attempt to make it. And I think that indeed Warnock's success, in fact, burnishes the reputation of Stacey Abrams as somebody who's made a real difference for electoral politics for Democrats in the South. And I hope her methods spread to places like North Carolina, Alabama, God forbid, may I dare even say Kentucky, Tennessee, South Carolina, and Mississippi.
Absolutely, Bill. And that's a great point on Stacey Abrams. And some people are meant to lead in office with a title, and some people are meant to lead in the streets. And I think when I think about Stacey Abrams and your comment, I think about Martin Luther King's speech before he was assassinated, his mountaintop speech, where he says, I may not get there with you, but I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land. And I think I have the whole line backwards. But, bottom line being that, King said, y'all might see it all the way through, but I don't know that I'll be there to see it. Now, obviously, we're not wishing for any ill harm to Stacey Abrams, but I think it's an apt comparison, politically speaking, that she didn't get to see the end result for her own personal political career, but the infrastructure she built is going to bear fruit. And I think you're absolutely right. You could take that to North Carolina. You could take that to Alabama. I think Beto O'Rourke is in that same bucket, having run unsuccessfully multiple times, but he has started to build something in Texas that I think will bear fruit. I think Tim Ryan and the way in which he ran in Ohio could bear fruit, not just in the next electoral cycle for Sherrod Brown, but in Ohio for the future. So some people aren't meant to ultimately have the title, but they might build something that lets others get all the way home. And so I love what you said, and I agree with the Times that Stacey Abrams might just be that person who her job was to build it, but not necessarily benefit from it. But she damn sure built it, and there are a lot of people who are doing a lot of things because of what she did for a number of years, Democrats. It is not instant. That Georgia infrastructure took years. Remember that in other states before you just say, maybe not that state anymore.
So let's go from the senator of high moral character to the senator whose recent statements have qualified her to serve on many a village board, if not within high-level management in the Columbia Association itself. And that would be the oh-so-fickle, yet just so dynamic, Senator Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona, who, yes, she of the Wiccan tendencies, and nothing against Wiccans. I love many a Wiccan. The turquoise and pink wigs on the floor of the Senate, the leather skirts, the boots, the magenta, hot magenta sweaters that say dangerous creature on them, the ring that says F off. She has decided that, and she who has been a sphinx, barely heard from in the United States Senate during her tenure. She has decided to be an independent. And her speech with CNN, where she declares herself an independent, and she is now the third independent in the U.S. Senate. She very coyly skirts around the issue as to whether or not she will caucus with the D's or the R's. But, everything was all about the Arizonans. I have never seen somebody take a more disappointing path in their first several years of national office. I mean, I actually thought that this was a woman who was going to come in and kind of shake stuff up, kind of be a very loud voice as much as one could be in the U.S. Senate. And the image I had was another Paul Wellstone. And Wellstone was an intellectual giant in the Senate. And I would have been happy if she had been another Al Franken, same state, but also kind of that refreshing, disruptive, truth-telling, call it like you see it, balls and strikes force. But ever since she's gotten into the Senate, she's thrown a lot of barbs at progressives. And, she winds up, cozying up with big dollar donors from, and apparently the more insidious the industry she gets her donors from, the better. So, facing another re-election fight of her own, and there's much speculation that had she been up for election this year instead of Mark Kelly, that she would not have survived a primary. She's decided to go independent. I know it's supposed to be for the Arizonans. Steve, to me, it seems awfully self-serving. What say you?
It is completely self-serving. And here's where, politics becomes, the cynical beast that it is. This just said, folks, the internet is undefeated. And on the internet, somebody found a lovely clip of Kyrsten Sinema laying into, in no uncertain terms, one Joe Lieberman for switching from Democrat to independent. And it was a fiery speech. She was bringing it. She was channeling, and obviously it's from years ago, but she was channeling her inner AOC. I mean, she was bringing the pain, baby, about the exact same thing she's doing right now. So, again, folks, you might want to check your history before you jump out there and make certain declarations. So this was all about her. There was no reason for her to do it. This wasn't Richard Shelby of Alabama who said, I am more conservative than the Democratic Party. I really am a Republican, so I'm just going to switch it up and be done with it. Her video that she put out would have been a perfect campaign launch for 2024, saying, hey guys, I'm ready for re-election, but this time I'm running as an independent. I mean, all she had to do was say, look, after years of thinking about it, I really want to be an independent in name as well as in how I go about my business. So I'm running again as an independent. There's nothing about this move that has anything to do with Arizona, Arizonans, or anything but Kyrsten Sinema. This was I'm going to jump in here. Somebody who doesn't even give interviews or town halls is everywhere now. You wonder where she would have been had Herschel Walker won. Okay. This was I'm going to thumb my nose. I'm going to put my thumb in the eye of the Democrats who are high fiving and Chuck Schumer who are high fiving. I'm going to get some attention on me because you need to pay attention to me. Guys, look over here. It's me. That's all this is. And it's not even really much of a power play. I mean, Schumer already came out and said, hey, you're going to keep all your committee stuff. It's all good. So this really was that. Plus, I think it's keeping her options open for the general election in 2024. You're right. She wasn't going to win. She wasn't going to get through a primary this year. She's not going to get through a primary in 2024 as a Democrat. Ruben Gallego has all but been running against her for 2 years and basically put out a statement that said, see you soon, Kirsten. So she was not going to be reelected as a Democrat. So I think what this gives her the opportunity to say is, I'm going to do it my way. And I would not be surprised, Bill, you can keep this recording. I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the day, she does not run for reelection, that she basically says, you know what, I've looked at what this might end up. I'm just not going to do it. I can't win. I'm not going to see, Blake Masters 2.0 get elected. I'm out. I would not be surprised to see her bow out because then she goes out on her terms as opposed to getting her behind kicked in the Democratic primary. I think that's the real end game, was keeping her options open for 2024. I actually think she did Democrats a favor because instead of thinking about Ruben Gallegos and others of, should I run against this incumbent? Should I not run against this incumbent? It's now wide open. So the one thing I will say in her total cynicism, she did the Democratic Party in Arizona a favor. They now don't have to sweat her. They can run their primary and call it a day. And oh, by the way, if Sinema thinks they're going to say, we'll stay out of this and we'll back you, kind of like a Democratic Party did in Utah with Evan McMullin, that ain't happening. So if she thinks that she can scare the Democrats into not putting somebody up, oh, they'll put somebody up. Oh, hell yeah. So, yeah, it's a me move, period, hard stop.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll just be very brief on this because we're coming up on our time. But yeah, Ruben Gallegos is coming. And, remember that thing about the 2022 elections where people were wondering about the, Hispanics and Latinx folks heading maybe towards the Republicans and more so men than women? What a better time for there to be a Hispanic male candidate running for a U.S. Senate seat in a swing state. I don't know, where Kirsten Sinema thinks she's going to get the 33 plus 1, which is what she's going to need. She might, or how she gets into, I believe they do runoffs. So, in Arizona, so how she's going to get to over 50 plus 1, she might, but clearly for her to win re-election, she's going to have to tack to the right. So I'm not sure how much I believe with this, I don't know where I'm going to caucus. I'm going to caucus for Arizonans. That ain't an option in the U.S. Senate. You got to pick one or the other. So I would actually see her as going the other way. And, Steve, you and I have both been around politics enough to know that there are plenty of politicians who go, oh, well, I am really reliably conservative or liberal, but it's just on this issue I happen to agree with the other side. Right. And they BS their way like that for years, and they get away with it. This seems to be where she's going. Is it going to work for her? Who the hell knows? And with that,
she better. Bill, just real quick, she better hope for a Blake Masters, Carrie Lake, somebody on the Republican side, because then maybe she steals enough Republicans who say, having a Sinema is better than having this trash heap. That's her hope.
When you say Blake Masters, you know who I keep thinking of? I keep thinking of Robin Masters, the fictional character who was the benefactor of one Thomas P. Magnum, in the classic TV series Magnum PI, because it was the estate of author Robin Masters and the groundskeeper and oh my God, consigliere Higgins,
Higgins,
who
yes.
then later, brought Thomas P. Magnum in as head of security. And the hijinks between John Hillerman and Tom Selleck for those many years. And there it is. Have you seen the new Magnum PI? They rebooted it.
Really? I have not. Oh my God.
Higgins is a female. I have not seen it. I don't know who Robin Masters is. I don't even know who the hell Magnum is. I just know that they recast Higgins and made Higgins female. So I don't know if there's to create some tension there, which I think is cheap heat. I mean, why not just go for the buddy repartee?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Wow.
Steve, what else do we want to talk about today? Are we done? Are we good here?
I think we're good. I think we've hit it, and in the words of James Brown, hit it and quit it. So
that I believe we have, and we are now 2 hours from Ravens Steelers kickoff. Steve, do you have a prognostication?
I like the Ravens in this game. The defense, this is going to be a low-scoring affair. The Pittsburgh Steelers are the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tomlin's going to bring it. The Ravens, I believe they're going to get back Williams, their prize free agent who was killing it before he injured his, I think he broke his wrist. He's coming back. J.K. Dobbins is coming back. But I think the defense with Williams back and the way Roquan Smith's playing, they've got a rookie quarterback going up on the Steelers side. And, I like Snoop. I like Hundley. I think he is an adequate fill-in for Lamar Jackson. I actually think he's got a better arm. You see some of the throws he was making against Denver. It's like Greg Roman discovers his playbook when Hundley's in the game. I don't get that. But I like the Ravens. Give me 19-10.
All week I've been saying Steelers, but I think today I'm going Ravens. I don't know why I feel this way. I just do. I think most of the kicking, most of the scoring comes off of people's toes today. I think each team gets a touchdown, but I go with 3 Justin Tucker field goals, and I go with a late interception on a last 2-minute drive by the Steelers to seal the 16-10 win for Baltimore.
There you go. Let's do it.
All right, Steve. Well, thank you for another fun-filled podcast. This is one for the history books, maybe for the number of times we've used the word poo-poo, or at least I have. And
yes.
I hope that you all out there in viewer and listener land have enjoyed today's episode of Forward Maryland. We will come at you next week with more fun-filled action. Until then, for Steve, this is Bill. Have a great week, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.